So another major theme is evolution. And this was popularized by Charles Darwin, who wrote the book On the Origin of Species. And evolution tends to be kind of a hot button word. But in science, evolution just means change. All it means is that over time, species change. The process of evolution is through natural selection. So natural selection is the mechanism that drives this change. This is the reason that species change. So an adaptation is a feature, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad, but a feature is going to be good or bad for an individual based on the environment it's in. So at natural selection, we'll select 4 adaptations that allow an organism to live in that environment. And natural selection will select against adaptations that are detrimental to living in a specific environment. All right, so let's look at the example right here. I've got some beetles, and these beetles have some variation. We've got light beetles, medium beetles, dark beetles, and they live in a dark environment. Birds eat beetles. Birds are typically visual predators, meaning that they're going to be able to see these light ones maybe easier than they can see these dark ones, because the dark ones are kind of camouflaged into the background environment. So the adaptation is being a darker beetle. In this case, being darker is a good thing for these beetles. The beetles are less likely to be eaten. This is natural selection. A beetle that's light is more likely to be eaten. So over a couple more generations, what we see is this. Eventually, the beetles are darker because the ones that survived are the dark beetles, and those ones have dark beetle babies, and then we end up with a population of dark and medium beetles because these lighter ones got eaten and taken out of the gene pool. So you can see the evolution. We started with this population, and we ended with this darker population. That's the change. Take a minute and watch this video about antibiotic resistance. It's literally only 2 minutes. So some adaptations that we have in ourselves. So we are primates, and we're closely related to the great apes. Our most close relative is the chimpanzee. You have 98% DNA the same as a chimpanzee. And we evolved in what's called an arboreal habitat, or an environment with lots of trees. And so a lot of our adaptations are actually well adapted to an arboreal or woody environment. So we have opposable thumbs, mobile shoulders. These are going to allow for grasping onto branches and swinging. The eyes are stereoscopic, which means that they're both on the front of the head. So stereoscopic, both eyes point forward, as opposed to a rodent or some kind of prey animal where the eyes kind of point off to the side. We are bipedal, bi meaning 2, ped meaning foot. So we walk upright on 2 legs. It was originally hypothesized that this was so that we could see higher over grasslands, but that theory has been kind of debunked. What you can see is walking on 2 legs is actually more energy efficient. All of the force from this foot goes right up into the hip. Whereas kind of walking leaned over or walking on 4 legs, all of this force, it's not all going to the hip. And so energetically, this walking with 2 legs actually becomes more energy efficient. And so that's how we think the adaptation of 2 legs developed. And then we also have the adaptation of having a larger skull size, right? So here's a gorilla, and then we have Homo erectus. This is an early hominin, and then Homo sapiens. Look at that big head, right? So what this means is that we have a higher volume for our brain. We have more thinking capacity. The ability to use tools, to make reasoning, develop language, all of that are adaptations for primates. One thing that we're going to see as we traverse through this semester is a hierarchy of human organization. So we're going to start at the smallest level. looking at atoms and molecules in the next chapter. Multiple atoms of different elements can be put together to make a molecule. Small molecules can be put together to make what's called a macromolecule, macro meaning large. We can take these macromolecules and organize them into larger subunits called organelles. This literally means like little organs. All of the organelles within a single cell can make up one cell that has its ability to function. When we take multiple cells of the same type and put them together, we get a tissue. When we take multiple tissues of different organs and put them together, multiple types of tissues and put them together, we get an organ. So something like the stomach. And then when we put related organs that function together, we cut an organ system. So this would be like your mouth, your esophagus, your stomach, your intestines, your colon, to make the digestive system. And when you take all of the systems that make up a human and put them together, you get a single organism, right? Like this very cute little baby. One thing that's important is that each level, so every time we go up, right, every time we go up a level in organization, new properties emerge, right? An organelle can do things that a piece of DNA can't do. A cell can do things that this organelle, this mitochondria, can't do. A tissue can do things that the cell can't do. Those are the new properties. Think about it like this way. If you've ever put together IKEA furniture, right? You go to IKEA, you go to the big storehouse, and you buy a gigantic box, and it's supposed to be like a dining room table. And then you go home and you open it up, and you've got a giant bunch of pieces of wood laying out on your floor in pieces, right? They're table pieces. Does each piece have the properties of a table? Like you can sit at it, you can eat your cereal. No. Not until you organize it, right? Not until you put all the screws together and hopefully have some help looking at those IKEA pictures that you put together an actual table. And it's not until you take each individual piece and organize it into a higher structure that it has the properties of a table, being at a comfortable height, being something you could rest your cereal bowl on it while you sit in a chair. So that's kind of what's happening here. The organ is a piece of the organ system. The stomach can't chew food, it can only churn it and digest it. It can't absorb it. You need the rest of the digestive system to be able to get food into the body, break it down, get it into the blood, and excrete the waste. So waste excretion is not a property of a specific organ of the stomach. So take a moment and reflect on the meaning of the term evolution and the process that drives evolutionary change.